So guys, is it finally here? Are we finally going to get Snow White running from the evil queen, befriending the seven dwarfs, singing with the woodland creatures, and being saved by the prince? Nope. But what we are going to get is the boss babe Snow White, played by a Hispanic actress who seems to hate the character more than the evil queen does, who thinks men are useless and plans a battle to save the kingdom from someone who most of us find hard to believe caused a problem initially because she was jealous of how this woman looks. But at this point, I think that most people involved, the cast, the crew, Disney as a whole, and those of us who have been talking about this movie forever are just ready to get it over with. Like, just release it, see what happens, and move on. We have seen this movie go through more transitions than Dylan Mulvaney, and at this point, whatever Disney was able to piece together from this mess is just going to have to do, and we're just going to have to see how the audience responds. But let's take a trip down memory lane and revisit the long, bumpy road of controversy that led us to the moment to where we are at today. First, we should have known that Disney wasn't going to be able to make a movie with the word white in the title without changing literally everything, because the word white is apparently so offensive to these folks that, of course, they couldn't make a movie in 2025 without altering the ethnicity of the lead character and then turning it into some kind of feminist manifesto. Because why stick to the script that made the original movie a historic success when you can make things infinitely more difficult for everybody involved by going directly against what Disney fans have repeatedly said that they want from this company by running yet another failed attempt to reinvent the wheel? Most of us understand the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But where woke ideology is concerned, they advocate for exactly the opposite, saying, if it ain't broke, smash it into 1,000 unrecognizable pieces and then try to sell it as an improved version of things. And honestly, the woke approach to things would be comical if it wasn't so ridiculous. And it's probably the ridiculousness of it that makes it so easy to make fun of. So when the first press interviews rolled out surrounding this film featuring their lead actress, we all knew immediately that this was just going to be a mess. And honestly, I think that even Disney probably knew that they had messed up at that point. Let's look at some of those first interviews from Rachel Zegler that started the whole dumpster fire that this thing has become. It was shaping up to be a rough start when the woman cast to play Snow White immediately came out and said that she thought the story was outdated and basically offensive, and that she didn't even like it when she was a kid.
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Doesn't sound like something a little kid would like. Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again. Just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
I just have a question. Like, just as a baseline priority, why would you not cast someone in such an iconic role that you know is special to so many people with an actress that actually appreciates the movie and appreciates the history behind it and wants to do this role justice and honor the thing that made Disney the success that it is today? I mean, I think it just goes to show once again how far this company has strayed from its audience and why their choice to prioritize politics has just led to catastrophe after catastrophe, especially in recent years. But moving on from Rachel Zegler just for a moment, because while the initial uproar was based on her comments and focused on these very cringy interviews, Peter Dinklage certainly was not going to sit this one out. He decided to throw his own grenade into the mix because apparently he had a huge problem with actual little people being cast as dwarves. In this article, it talks about an interview that Peter gave on this whole situation. It says, and then there's the issue of the seven dwarfs who have been conspicuously dropped from the new film's title, Disney Snow White. Peter Dinklage, perhaps Hollywood's most famous actor with dwarfism, slammed Disney's hypocrisy for making a new Snow White film at all. In a 2022 interview with podcaster Mark Maron, the Game of Thrones actor questioned how Disney could be proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White and yet think a remake of a backward story of 7 dwarfs living in a cave made sense. Disney quickly issued a statement promising to take a different approach that would avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film. So because he was offended by how these dwarfs would be portrayed, Disney thought that the best solution was to cut them from the movie entirely and use a group of racially diverse regular people for the parts instead. I'm sorry, but instead of portraying dwarfs living in a cave, they thought it was less offensive to portray racial minorities living in a cave. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm pulling myself together, but on top of all of that, in the woke verse, if you replace one marginalized group with another, even if the original group doesn't like it, they're not allowed to openly disagree with it. The only time you're allowed to complain about character replacement is if it's with a straight white male. So even if Peter Dinklage realized that he caused a problem and the little people cut from the film didn't like it, they can't say anything because then they'd be victimizing the diverse group that were able to get jobs in their place. Like, you literally can't make this stuff up. But these are the corners that they paint themselves into when they're trying to appease an illogical and nonsensical worldview where everybody is offended by everything. So as Disney promised to take a different approach that would avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film, they decided to cut both the dwarves and the racially diverse group and just CGI the dwarf characters instead, which then contradicts the goal of being a live action film. And now the dwarfs are boycotting the film. You guys, I'll try to get through this without laughing too much, but it says dwarf actors plan to protest Snow White for not hiring dwarfs to play dwarfs. So dwarf actress Ali Chapman said the remake is a total travesty. Her husband, who is also a dwarf, said, "We've been totally shut out, but we're not going down quietly. It's hard enough in Hollywood. Everyone's trying to make their dreams come true. When you're a little person, opportunities are few and far between. I was born to play Dopey." Guys, he was born to play Dopey. You have denied somebody their life calling. How dare you? But it doesn't end there. So at this point, they can't push this film out any further. They just have to get this thing out in public. And honestly, like I said, I think they just want to be done with this movie because they've been sitting on it for years and everything that they have done so far has just made it worse. So to get this movie ready for their official release, which is scheduled for March 21st, they have done more controlled, smaller scale events where Zegler, who tried to promote this movie in favor of feminism, will be limited on her questions and answers. So this hero for women and, being a voice for women is now not even allowed to talk. This article by Forbes, it says Disney will not invite most media outlets to the premiere of its upcoming Snow White live action remake, Variety reported Tuesday. As the film's diverse casting, the political views of its lead actors, and star Rachel Zegler's suggestion the new film will be more feminist have drawn scrutiny, particularly from right-wing critics. It says Disney, which typically hosts large red carpet events for film premieres, has scaled back the Snow White premiere to include only photographers and an in-house crew, Variety reported, booting most of the media outlets that would have otherwise been invited. Disney did not comment to Variety about why the decision was made, but the pared down premiere follows years of controversy for the film. Forbes has reached out to Disney for comment. Ultimately, it just seems like they don't feel they can trust Rachel Zegler to not make the entire thing about her and her political views. But funnily enough, she still seems to be optimistic about all of this, how all of this is going to unfold. It says Disney will be hoping that all the publicity proves to be good publicity when it hits theaters next weekend. Quote, "I interpret people's feelings about this film as passion for it," Zegler told Vogue Mexico. "What an honor to be part of something that people feel so passionate about." So this is just my observation, but Rachel Zegler seems to also have a lot in common with Meghan Markle, particularly in the belief that negative attention is still attention. It's all the same as long as your name remains in the headlines, regardless of who it affects or what the public truly thinks of you. She also seems to share Meghan Markle's knack for thinking that we have forgotten about her long history of self-centered behavior. As the release of the movie draws closer, she is suddenly trying to rebrand herself as someone who stands for the complete opposite of what she stood for like 5 minutes ago. And what do I mean by that? Well, as we know, she once said that Snow White scared her and that the movie was outdated and weird, but now, with the release of the movie coming up, she's rebranding herself as someone who loves Snow White. In fact, she even tried to pay homage to the original actress with this photo on Instagram. In this article, it says Zegler appeared to have a change of heart as she took to Instagram this week to share a new hairdo inspired by Adriana Caselotti, who voiced Snow White in the animated film. Posing for a coquettish shoot with a bow in her hair and feigning laughter, Zegler wrote, "Just had to pay homage to the original Snow White, Miss Adriana Caselotti, to whom I owe everything." Amid Zegler's past heavy criticism of the film, fans took her to task on social media for the sudden U-turn. She hated the original film, LMAO. She is so desperate now. Thought she hated the original. Oh, the one she called weird and outdated? Although she watched it once as a kid and was so scared she turned it off. I thought she didn't like the original. Cringe, when is she going to apologize for insulting Walt in his original film? So yeah, nobody believes that Rachel Zegler suddenly loves the original storyline or respects this character. And ultimately, the harder she tries, the more damage that she causes. But maybe next time, Disney don't cast someone who openly hates the story in the lead role. And maybe, just maybe, ask your cast members to keep their politics out of the storyline. Because honestly, I think this has become a major issue for Hollywood, and I hope that they recognize it at some point. But that's that their actors can't seem to separate themselves from the character that they play. Their characters must reflect their personal worldview. I mean, take Peter Dinklage, for example. Offended because the dwarfs were actually being played by little people, but also offended because he didn't want it to be portrayed that they actually live in caves. I mean, no one was going to leave the theater thinking that little people actually live in caves. I mean, we know it's a fairy tale, Peter. We're not that far gone. And then there's Rachel Zegler, who could have just played Snow White as someone who escapes the evil queen and finds the 7 dwarves, helps around the house in exchange for shelter, and waits for the prince to come and rescue her. But I'm sure nobody was going to walk away thinking, well, Rachel Zegler is a housekeeper waiting for a man to come and fix her life. Sure, you can obviously have your political views, but when you can't separate them from the characters that you play, it's no longer entertainment. It just becomes a lecture. People don't go to movies to be lectured on politics. So maybe, just maybe, stop trying to turn everything into a political statement. You might actually be more successful that way. Not to mention, the message of Snow White was already empowering. She already addressed being kind to people who are different than you, staying positive in the face of adversity, serving others and working hard and just being grateful. And in this day and age where everyone wants to be the first to grab a sword and fight, it takes a lot more strength and bravery to stay positive and look for ways to uplift others. We're not rejecting this movie because we can't handle storylines with strong female leads. I mean, look at Moana, Frozen, and Brave. Those were all fantastic movies about female independence, and you didn't have to destroy the Disney classics in order for those to be received well. We're just tired of constantly being told that stories of the past were not good enough and that things that actually made people kind and empathetic were just based on oppressive, supremacist, patriarchal, anti-woman ideas. The original stories worked because they were full of imagination and full of fantasy and, get this, escapism. We wanted to escape reality. And the messages in those movies did far more to bring joy and unity and empowerment and meaning than any of the crap that these people are trying to push today. People were happier and kinder and less stressed because we were uplifted by these stories when they were focused on the human emotions that actually connect us, which are the desire to uplift others and overcome despite our challenges. And just to be clear, I'm not even saying that I don't think this movie is going to be a success. I have no idea what's going to happen. I think a lot of people are going to watch just out out of sheer curiosity of what Disney was able to pull together after this film has literally been put through the ringer. But they can avoid all of these headaches in the future if they stop trying to sell woke political campaigns using animated characters based on children's stories, because that's not only disturbing, it's just not working. But anyway, that is all I have for you in this one. I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below, and let me know if you actually plan on going to see this movie, and I would love to hear what you think of it if you do. Please be sure to hit that like button. It helps me in the algorithm. Hit the subscribe button. I am trying to grow this channel. If you're looking for other ways to support me, there is a Buy Me a Coffee link in the pinned comment below, and all of the donations are so appreciated and they help me to bring more content to you more frequently. Other than that, keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one.